tell you something about Andrew. This is my boy right here. You disrespect him, you're disrespecting me.
Inside fighting, Sean's inside fighting.
PFL star Kayla Harrison is going after her UFC dream. She is signed with the UFC to fight Holly Holm. Dricus Du Plessis becomes the UFC middleweight champion, defeating Sean Strickland. And I'm here with Inside Fighting's Timothy James, aka Timmy Shoes, to talk all about it. What's up, man? How are you?
Doing good. Excited about the Harrison signing, and excited to see what the future of middleweight takes us now that the Sean Strickland era has so abruptly ended. Always good talking to you, Jesse.
His title, what a reign, as Israel Adesanya's brother said.
Yeah.
What a reign. Sean Strickland era has only just begun in the eyes of many, Timmy, but I do want to get into that. That being said, obviously, you said you're excited about the Kayla Harrison signing. That's not exactly a sentiment shared by a lot of UFC fans based on what I saw on Twitter last night when the announcement is made. We're going to get into that, so stay tuned. We will be talking about that signing. First, I want to because we haven't gotten a chance to do it, let's recap UFC 297. Dricus Du Plessis defeating Sean Strickland via split decision. It was a controversial one. A lot of people felt like Sean Strickland had done enough to win. Some people were even throwing out the term robbery. I thought, made an excellent TikTok about this. If you guys don't follow us on TikTok, you should. Go check it out. Timmy made a great TikTok sort of getting into the scoring. Based on the what is it called? Universal MMA rule set, unified rule set, and how takedowns are scored when you're not targeting submissions, when you're not doing any damage with it, versus how overall cumulative damage is weighed differently than damage, like the heavier shots can last throughout the course of a fight. So I thought you did a really good job of breaking that down. I personally was texting you. I'm going to probably piss some people off. I thought DDP won the fight. I thought that it was very close. I understand both sides of the argument. I'm very political in this. I would have been fine with Sean winning. I was rooting for Sean to win. I was hoping they said and still, but I did think DDP won. What were your thoughts?
Every time that there's a close fight, you'll hear fans cry robbery one way or the other. And there were a lot of split decisions on this card. So the judging was a little bit all over the place. But there does seem to be a lot of confusion about how fights are scored. If you get a takedown and you do not advance position, you do not do ground and pound, you do not attack a submission, it doesn't count for anything. It's the equivalent of a guy just running around the octagon, right? So if you take a guy down and every time DDP took him down, Sean got right back up. 6 takedowns with it was like 2 minutes of control time. So there was like 25 seconds a takedown. Like DDP obviously wasn't getting anything off, but immediate impact over cumulative. That's basically a fancy way of saying quality over quantity. You can outstrike a guy 5-1, but if that guy's one punch knocks you down, he's gonna win the round. You can land 50.
There were no knockdowns in this fight, by the way.
Pity patter
Nobody was
shots
dropped in
that
this
don't
fight.
do any damage, and then the other guy throws one shot, and if it connects and knocks you down, he wins the round. That's how the criteria is set up.
Well, there were no knockdowns in this fight. There were takedowns, but nobody was dropped in this fight. Obviously, if this was based on like whose face looked worse at the end of the fight, Strickland wins by a long shot. Now, that's not to say that Strickland did not sustain damage. He claimed he was hit with a headbutt. I'm pretty sure that the replay shows that Du Plessis did get him with an elbow. He rubbed his head on Strickland, got him with an elbow on the exit, which opened up the cut. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened, which led to the incredible meme of Sean looking like Kratos from God of War with the blood streak going down his face. Awesome. One of the most epic memes, just an epic shot, iconic. But I felt like DDP landed the heavier shots. Strickland turns his fights into sparring matches, which that's when he can control the fight. He's really good at doing that, controlling the pace of a fight. all the great ones are able to do that. They sort of dictate the fight on their terms. But I felt like DDP was always advancing the action, whereas when Strickland fought Adesanya, Adesanya was on his back foot the whole time. Sean was the one advancing. Yeah. I thought DDP was the one advancing in this fight. Obviously, Strickland had his moments. This is how I would put it. Sean won the fight, but DDP won more rounds, if that makes sense. Like, Sean won the battle but lost the war. It's like a weird way of putting it, where I think like both
it's not a weird way of putting it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
In Pride rules, the end of the fight would be weighed more heavily. The way that the judging works now is that it's round by round. But in Pride, it was the fight was judged as the sum of its parts. So there was no round by round. You judged the entire fight. So if you finished the fight very strong, which Sean Strickland did, he won the 5th round convincingly, I thought.
Yeah.
Then, under the Pride rules, Sean Strickland would have won, which I'm sympathetic to that judging criteria. I don't like doing it round by round for a few reasons. One of the reasons is because rounds 2 and 3 were so incredibly close. I think there's an argument that Sean Strickland won, but I think there's also a strong argument that DDP won.
That being said, it was a great fight. Awesome fight. I hope they run it back at some point. It was really, truly a great fight for a really terrible fight card, to put it that way. Just a horrible women's bantamweight fight, which sort of, really quick before we get to that, Sean's on the topic of Sean Strickland. He did tweet out that he wanted to, I don't know if you saw this, he tweeted out that when he's done with his fight career in a few years, he wants to run for political office, some sort of public office. He said that he'd love to debate AOC one day. Now, he said that he doesn't think he would ever win, but what do you think? Do you think Sean Strickland has a chance of winning a public office position at some point when his fight career is over?
Listen, in 2054, the presidential candidates are going to be Sean Strickland versus Kanye West. And I'm probably going to be voting third party. That's all I have to say about that.
I feel like they're politically aligned, though, oddly enough. I feel like...
I guess, hold on. I guess you're right. They would be probably closer.
Sean Strickland versus the guy that runs Bloody Elbow.
I don't know. Versus who?
The guy that runs Bloody Elbow.
Oh, yeah. It's actually a woman. Steffi Hayes, I believe, is her name.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I actually think Sean Strickland is serious when he says that. I hope that that's a long way away, because I'm enjoying his run, even though I wholeheartedly disagree with about 95% of the things that he says. I think that he says them with passion and conviction. I think his heart is in the right place. I think that he cares about America and and other human beings that are, the everyman. I think he does care about them. And I think that's a good selling point. I think that he would connect with a vast swath of Americans who feel like they've been, pushed away by society. That being said, maybe Sean Strickland versus Stephen A. Smith, because Stephen A. Smith just said that he would wipe the floor with Donald Trump in a debate. So let's get Strickland versus Stephen A. Smith in a I don't know.
That's a good one. Why don't they just why doesn't Stephen A. Smith just interview him? Because that'd be fun just to watch. I'd watch that. I wouldn't vote for either of them. Yeah. But I would watch them debate. Just throw out a political topic and watch them go at it. That would be high quality entertainment. That's popcorn worthy right there.
Absolutely. And that being said, people that are kind of like upset about what Strickland did over the weekend, I get it. You got to get used to it. Sean Strickland is now officially a superstar of the UFC. It's strange, it's crazy, but over the past 2 fights of his, he has become a true superstar of the sport. Sean Strickland is potentially entering that territory where he could headline a pay-per-view that is not a title fight. I think we're a little bit of ways away from that, but I do think that Sean Strickland could potentially be one of those guys, simply because he's an outspoken guy that a lot of people truly love. When you enter the political space and people love you, it's like you sort of become a hero to people, and it goes beyond fighting. He's not just a hero for them in the octagon. He's a hero for them beyond the octagon. And that's where you hold true power in sports. So I could see him headlining some pay-per-views in non-title fights. That might be a ways away, but I could see it happen. Last thing, we talked about the bantamweight division for women. It was obviously a terrible title fight. Raquel Pennington has become the champion. But we got some huge news last night with Dana White announcing that the UFC has signed Kayla Harrison away from the PFL to fight Holly Holm at UFC 300. And of course, there were memes left and right where people were like joking about how please just don't put Holly Holm on UFC 300. And what happens? The big surprise that the UFC has is Kayla Harrison versus Holly Holm. Huge signing. Kayla Harrison fights at 155 in the PFL. There's not even a 145-pound division in the UFC. Is there? Am I wrong on that? No.
It was supposed to be phased out after Amanda Nunes retired.
Oh, I'm sorry.
they
Yeah,
didn't
Grosso.
even
What am I
have
talking
10
about?
fighters
Yeah,
to fill out
Grosso.
the
What am I?
rankings.
Oh, no. Who's 145 champion? Why am I blanking out right now?
There is no 145 champion.
Okay. So
There's like three. There was like three fighters. They all sucked. I think the only one who was fighting. I think the last featherweight fight was Norma Dumont. Versus
okay.
that girl who ran away from her. So it's been a while. I think the division might be officially phased out.
Yeah. So now you have Kayla Harrison, who's going to fight not at 145, not at 155, but at 135 against Holly Holm. So this weight cut is going to be interesting. There's been all sorts of debate about why Kayla hasn't joined the UFC. It's taken her this long. Normally, when you get at this age in your career, you start going up weight classes. She's going to be going down 2 weight classes to take this fight. Timmy, what do you think? It's huge news. I'm stoked for it. I think it's awesome, but I also am very, very skeptical about whether or not she can make this cut.
Well, I mean, that's the rub, right? It's a great signing because it's very obvious that bantamweight division needs some help right now. Raquel Pennington is our champion. Mayra Bueno Silva, I thought she was going to do a lot better. That was a ridiculous performance. Obviously, Ronda Rousey was a big star at bantamweight. Amanda Nunes was a big star at bantamweight. Miesha Tate was a big star at bantamweight at one point. Even Holly Holm had her moment in the sunshine. The division's in a lot of trouble right now. I think Kayla Harrison was a great person to sign. I want to know, is she planning on chopping off her arm, her right arm, her left leg? I don't know how she's going to make that cut. She's probably going to have to go on a very rigid diet, and she's going to have to come into camp lighter than she's ever been. But, people are better at this nowadays. She's always been a very strong person, so she's probably going to have to lose some muscle, honestly, because you can only lose so much fat. And I think the bantamweight division needed this, and I think that Dana White alluded to some sort of big comeback. I thought maybe, he was going to get Ronda Rousey to come out of retirement. Maybe Amanda Nunes wants to come out of retirement now because Kayla Harrison was always that other person besides Cyborg, right? Cyborg was tweeting about fighting at UFC 300.
Right.
So the division needs some help. And I think it's good if Kayla can make the weight. I hope she can. I'm excited to see it because the division needs the help.
This is UFC 300 as it stands right now. I put out a tweet last night for Inside Fighting, so I'm going to just sort of read it out and just see where we go from here. Here's what we got. With the addition of Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison, we have Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan, Yan Xiaonan versus Zhang Weili, Yuri Prohaska versus Alexander Rakic, Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling, Cody Garbrandt versus Davison Figueiredo, Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage, Bobby Green versus Jim Miller, Kayla Harrison versus Holly Holm, and now Sadiq Youssef versus Diego Lopez. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fights. So what does that leave us? 2 more that they got to book?
2 more. They might stack a little bit more. The big question is what's going to be the main event, because we still need that big championship fight. I think it's going to be one of 3 things. I'm going to throw them out there. Let me see what you think. Alex Pereira is going to fight maybe Magomed Ankalaev, or he's going to fight Tom Aspinall, or Tom Aspinall is going to fight Cyril Gane, or Dricus Du Plessis is going to do a relatively quick turnaround, and fight Israel Adesanya. And Izzy Adesanya is going to be the big mystery comeback that Dana White alluded to, even though it clearly wasn't Izzy.
Du Plessis, though, he's wearing it a little bit. Like it might be 3 months might be a quick turnaround for the damage he sustained. He wasn't knocked out or anything, but it was a war. If Izzy's going to fight, it's like it's either Du Plessis or it's Pereira. There is nothing else. He's not coming back for UFC 300 to fight Hamzat, right? So it's gonna be one of those two. I agree. It could be Leon Edwards, Bilal Muhammad as the co-main event.
That was the one I forgot. I was like,
if
I
the
forgot
UFC
one.
is
I threw in Pereira versus Aspinall, but I
right.
meant to say Edwards versus Bilal because
So-
that's the one nobody wants to see. Well, I
But
mean, we
I don't
want to
know
see
if-
it, but we don't want to see it at UFC 300.
I don't know if UFC fans can take, you know, they've been hyping up UFC 300. It's like you can have one, but you can't have the other. It's like they already announced Holly Holm for UFC 300. You can't give us Bilal Muhammad now. You just can't do this. You can't do this to us for UFC 300. But it's looking like that's a possibility. But as a co-main event, I'd be okay with Leon versus Bilal so long as it's like Izzy Pereira for the main event. I think that's fine.
Let me tell you something about Andrew. This is my boy right here. You disrespect him, you're disrespecting me.
Inside fighting, Shanti inside fighting.